Remember, in the course of discussing movies, the host will spoil plots. You've been warned. Listen to their screams. Greetings, ghouls and creeps, and welcome to Listen to Their Screams, a horror podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dave. I'm joined as always by Ike. Ike, how the hell are you?
You know, I'm not too shabby today. I actually got a decent night's sleep last night. I ate Arby's for lunch, so I'm having a pretty good day.
I like Arby's. Arby's is good.
Arby's
Roast beef's
gets
all right?
unnecessary. Yeah, they get
They get a lot of
unnecessary
hate.
hate.
Yeah, I like the gyros. They're not the best gyros, but they're all right. It's
Right. For
when
fast food.
yeah, when you want it, when you don't, when you want one quick, yeah, it's a good option. Plus now they have crinkle cut fries, which is I like that too. So
True. I do like crinkle cut fries, but yes, I did get a roast beef and fries.
the horsey sauce. Oh,
Yes.
we actually have a bottle of the horsey sauce that you can buy in stores now. So fan of the horsey sauce. Of course, Monica can eat horseradish just like it's water. So we're good with that. So
Burns my nose.
yeah. Speaking of Monica and your wife Kayla, special thanks to them for supporting us. We'll get that out right off the bat. So Ike, what'd you watch this week? Anything good, or what'd you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Outside of eating Arby's, had a good week. Let's see. I did this time. I remembered to make a list because I always forget.
Yeah.
So I watched two movies. I will preface by saying that I'm completing my second playthrough of Resident Evil 4. So on a gaming perspective, I'm still working on that. From a movie perspective, I saw Pray for the Devil. They just put it on Stars not too long ago. But it was in theaters I think last year, but it was pretty good. It's an exorcism type movie. It's not horrible. I wouldn't say it was better than Pope's Exorcist by any means, but it was pretty good. The other movie I watched was Bed Rest on Tubi. That one was pretty good. I actually saw a TikTok. Somebody was like, this is one of the most underrated horror movies of 2022, and it was just all right. It does have the wonderful actress who plays Sam from the Scream movies, Sam Carpenter.
Oh yeah.
So she's in that, and it's just all right. Honestly, I think it's a little overhyped based on TikTok, but it was pretty good. I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it again, but if you like haunting type movies, it's not too bad.
Interesting. Well, I didn't watch anything. Not at least not anything horror related. I've had a busy week so far, and my viewing has been cut down. But I've watched some sporadic. I've watched, on a completely unrelated note, I've watched the first 3 episodes of Muppets Mayhem that came out on Disney Plus today because I'm a big Muppets fan, and any show about the Electric Mayhem was good stuff. So I watched that today. I did watch the movie we're reviewing today. We're Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, because on May 13th, 1988, the movie was released. So this is we're a couple days out from the release of this podcast of the 35th anniversary. So I did watch that. Actually watched it twice, believe it or not. Hard to believe to me now that Friday the 13th Part 7 is the Friday the 13th that I have watched the most so far this year. Words I never thought I would say, but and other than that, I just watched some sporadic stuff, but nothing horror related. It's been a crazy week. So I've just watched little bits here and there, but nothing, at least nothing that I can recall right off the top of my head that jumps at me. And I typically make a list when I watch something horror related, and there's nothing on my list, so
yeah, I'm the same way. I don't know what it was about this week because I guess we have fluxes. Some weeks we watch a lot, some weeks we don't. Like you said, I've been watching a lot of unhorror stuff. Like we were rewatching a lot of the Guardians, the Galaxy movies, stuff like that because we want to go see the third one.
Yeah.
But like outside of that, like you said, it's just been busy, so the viewing has been less.
Yeah, me too. That's what things spurn, like an anniversary of a movie or something, and I'll go down rabbit holes of watching kind of related stuff, and just nothing really jumped this week. And I mean, there was just other stuff I was watching that was just not horror related. So it tis what it tis. But I'm still feeling spooky. No matter what, it's always there. I always dabble in. But I did watch a couple episodes of American Horror Story this week, so there is that, I guess. So a little bit, and whatever. But before we get to the news and the reviews and all that good stuff, let's play our game for the week. And this week we're jumping back to one of the newer ones. This week we're going to do Two Truths and an AI. All right, so we're going to play Two Truths and an AI, and basically to recap what this is, we have 3 movie descriptions here that were put together by my wife, Monica, and 2 of them are actual movie descriptions, and one of them was generated by an AI. They should all have kind of similar themes. They should be similar, kind of related in their descriptions. She has cleansed them of any names or anything else. She learned from our first one. You got our first one pretty easily because because we didn't know the movies, but you were able to kind of read, by the format. So she's tried to make them a little more universal. So we'll see. We'll see if it's successful. So this is the first time I have read these descriptions. The first time you have heard them. I have the answers to if they are actual movies or not in a folded up stapled sheet here. So I have not seen those. This is, like I said last time, this is totally Johnny Carson-like. I'm going to hold the envelope to my head, and we're going to see what we can do. Since I'm reading, Ike, you're the one that's got to guess. So here we go. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
She made this font a little small. She does know that I can have bad vision. So yeah, here we go. The first movie description is: a bus is hit by a devastating lightning storm. The passengers have no idea what is ahead. That's very short and to the point. Number 2, their mother warned them about curses, but they never prepared for the ancient demon who would come to feed on their fear this Friday the 13th. And number 3, 5 friends head out to spend Friday the 13th to camp on an old deserted farm. They never dreamed the nightmare that was ahead of them. So she has completely fed off the Friday the 13th theme here. So what do you think, Ike? Anything jumping at you there? Do you need them reread? Any of them reread? Or
Let's think here. So that first one, it does stick out to me as being somewhat unique because of the lightning storm. So I think that is a legitimate movie. The other 2, they are pretty similar. I think one of them is probably the AI. So,
well, let's say up front, none of the 3, at least for me, none of the 3 jump out as a movie. I'm like, oh, I know what that is. None of the descriptions, I can't name if it's an actual. The 2 that are actual movies, none of them are jumping, or I know what they are. Are any of them for you immediately jumping out?
I wouldn't be able to tell you the name of it, but that first one seems familiar. That first one seems like a movie that I've either seen or like that I know of.
So a bus is hit by a devastating light storm. The passengers have no idea what is that. Maybe that's Speed 2 Cruise Control. I don't know. I've never. I like the first Speed. Never seen the second one, so I don't know what that's.
So
no, I can't.
I feel pretty confident that's like a legitimate movie. Now the other 2 I'm not so sure about. So could you reread me the other 2?
Okay. Number 2, their mother warned them about curses, but they never prepared for the ancient demon who would come to feed on their fear this Friday the 13th. And the third one is: 5 friends head out to spend Friday the 13th to camp on an old deserted farm. They never dreamed the nightmare that was ahead for them.
So that second one kind of sounds like Pumpkinhead.
Okay.
So I'm going to say that the third one is not real because the third one, this is the way it's worded. Don't get me wrong, AI is great, but like AI does sometimes word things a little weird. In the camp on an old farm, it just kind of seems a little too E-I-E-I-O. So let's
here we go.
I'm going to say the third one.
So you're saying the third one is the AI. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 1, again, a bus is hit by a devastating light storm. The passengers have no idea what is ahead. That is a movie from 1933 called Friday the 13th, starring Jesse Matthews and Sonny Hale. It's available on the Classic Film app Time. Classic Film Time app. Excuse me. I guess the app is called Classic Film Time. So number 1 is a movie from 1933. Number 2, their mother warned them about curses, but they never prepared for the ancient demon who would come to feed on their fear this Friday the 13th. That is From Fear to Eternity. That is an episode of Charmed. Season 1, episode 13, starring Alyssa Milano, Shannon Doherty, and Holly Maureen Combs. It's available on Peacock and Pluto. Number 3, 5 friends head out, spend Friday the 13th to camp on an old deserted farm. They never dreamed the nightmare that was ahead of them. That is AI generated with parameters of Friday the 13th, 5 friends, and farm as the keywords. So, Ike, you nailed it again. You are 2 for 2 in the 2 truths and an AI. But you were incorrect. That is not a episode, not a movie, not a Pumpkinhead. Not Pumpkinhead.
I
But
don't
it
know
is an
why
episode of Charm. I've never watched Charm, but I've watched a little.
I've never seen Charmed. Yeah, I don't know why it sounded Pumpkinhead-ish. I need to rewatch Pumpkinhead. It's on. I think it's on AMC Plus.
I thought about that the other day. I thought, I haven't watched any of those in forever, and somehow I got sidetracked again. I don't know. New Muppet shows or whatever coming out, but. All right, so there we have it. Our second installment of 2 Truths and an AI, and Ike is 2-0 so far. So
boom.
We're gonna have to see if Monica, the tag team of Monica and the AI, the next time we come around can stump you that time. So we'll see. But for now, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna have news, birthdays, and movie anniversaries. Make sure you subscribe to Listen to Their Screams on your favorite podcast platform. Also, make sure you look us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, and Slasher. All you have to do is look up Listen to Screams. That is Listen, the number 2 in Screams, and you can find us there. Also, make sure you go and buy yourself a Listen to Their Screams t-shirt. You can find all of our shirts at tinyurl.com/Screams Shirts.
And here we go with some news. Tell me the news. All right. We have, starting up from the top, Dave actually told me this before we filmed, and this has actually got me a little excited, but Nika announced a new Toonie Terror set featuring Jigsaw and Billy from Saw. This figure is the Jigsaw Killer and Mask, as well as Billy the Puppet and Tricycle, and it is estimated to ship in September 2023. Now, I love Saw. I'm really excited for later this year when we get Saw 10 and we get to do the Saw retrospective, hopefully. Yep. So I think, I'm not super duper into the figures and stuff, but I think, this might crack that shell a little bit. I'm pretty excited for these. What about you, Dave?
Yeah. Oh, well, I love the Toonie Terrors. I have several of them. I don't even know how many I have. 5, 6, 7. I have a bunch. I have quite a few, and I love them. I'm always buying new ones. But yeah, I really like it when they really, when they really do a movie that I really like, and this, Saw set's good. And from the picture, it looks great, and it really lends itself well to the Toonie Terrors. So looks awesome, especially that Billy the Puppet on the tricycle. That's awesome.
Yes, absolutely. I love Billy the Puppet. Super creepy, but also super awesome. But so keep an eye out for that. If you want it, buy it. Estimated to ship in September 2023. On to our next little bit of information, which is also pretty exciting news. I think we actually talked about this before, but Beetlejuice 2 is officially happening. Warner Brothers has announced it, and it is releasing to theaters on September 6, 2024. It will star Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, and Jenna Ortega. I think we talked about this briefly. Obviously, Michael Keaton will reprise his role as Beetlejuice himself, and Winona Ryder will reprise her character. And I think Dave actually said in our previous episode that he thinks that Jenna Ortega will most likely be a child.
And that is official. They have announced that she is the Winona Ryder character's daughter in this.
There you go.
They have announced that as part of it. I'm so excited. I love Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is so good. It is such a great movie. I know it's horror peripheral. It's not like scary. It's not gory, but as a kid, it was scary.
Yeah.
But it's it's got a lot of comedy. But first of all, Michael Keaton's in it. Sign me up. I'm good. I love Michael Keaton, but I love Winona Ryder as well, and Jenna Ortega being it. That's just great. She's perfect to play that Winona Ryder character's daughter. I'm super excited. I have faith that the script will be good. Man, I'm excited. And then coming out in September of the year, as we're getting into spooky time and October and right before Halloween. Oh, that's perfect. Put it in there. I'm there.
Yeah, absolutely. I do too love Beetlejuice. I think it definitely belongs in the horror category, even if it is a little comedic. We love other horror comedies. Army of Darkness, Shaun of the Dead. So
Yeah, I mean,
Can't
we've
say no.
discussed, all the different genres of horror. And it's a horror comedy, but it's still horror. I mean, it's still spooky. It's still scary. I mean, fucking Beetlejuice is a ghost. So come on.
That's right. Beetlejuice is a ghost. All right. But yes, I'm super excited. Keep an eye out for this next year in September of 2024.
I'm sure we'll be
Awesome.
reviewing it.
I'm positive that we will be.
Yep.
All right. And then surprisingly didn't know that they still did these, but MTV held their movie and TV awards on May the 7th, and Scream 6 took home Best Movie and Best Fight for Gale Weathers versus Ghostface.
Yep.
That's interesting. I think that is a pretty interesting fight. And it was a good movie. I don't know if it would win an award in my opinion, but it is good nonetheless.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, the fight scene, yeah, okay, I can see that. To me, it was a good scene. It was probably one of the highlights of the movie for me. Yeah, and I also saw today. Speaking of MTV, did you see just today they've talked? I guess their MTV is officially ending on their programming the MTV News little news clips where they break into news stuff. They're not going to do those anymore. So that was such a part of my childhood when like Kurt Loder and all those guys would break in with breaking, news and stuff. They're not going to do that anymore. So it's like the evolution of MTV just gets further and further away from its roots.
That is very true. That is very true. What is the old song when MTV used to be? There was that old song 1985 or whatever
Oh
it
yeah,
was.
yeah,
They had the whole part about MTV.
yeah.
Oh Lord. But all right. Well, if you guys are curious, go check it out. I'm sure there is clips on YouTube's of their award.
Oh yeah, sure.
But speaking of awards, the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards is going to debut on Sunday, May 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, exclusively on Shudder. Now, this I might watch.
I will. Yeah.
Fangoria. I mean, Fangoria is awesome. It's Chainsaw Awards. I love
Yeah.
chainsaws, so I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about the Dead Meat Awards when they were out, whatever it was, a month or so ago. But and no offense to them, whatever else, but the Chainsaw Awards, that's kind of the horror highlight, right? That's our Academy Awards, that's our Oscars or whatever you want to. I guess the Oscars and the Academy Awards are the same thing. Whatever. I'm not an award show guy, but this one, yeah, I'm all about it. I cannot wait. I love the fact that it's going to be on Shudder, streaming live, nice, easy, accessible. And I think, I mean, we'll definitely watch this. I'm sure we'll speak of it pretty, on the episode not long after that. Talk about it a little bit.
Absolutely. And then we also, speaking of some new news, we have filming is officially underway for Welcome to Derry, the It prequel series. The series will be featured on HBO Max, or the soon-to-be-known Max, and there is no release date given yet. I do think we talked about this a little bit, but if I remember, Skarsgård is not reprising his role as Pennywise, right?
Right. Yeah, this is kind of like how Pennywise becomes Pennywise, so... I'm guessing this series will end with maybe the unveiling, the revolution of Pennywise or something happening. I don't know. We've gotten some nuggets here and there about, Pennywise's background a little. So, but this is supposed to dive into it. So, again, it's going to pull a lot from the books, the source material. Being on a big platform like, the Max thing, it's going to, should have the budget, should be good. I'm excited for it. I love the It stuff. It's a little disappointing that maybe Skarsgård's not in it, but who knows? Maybe he will. Maybe at the end of it, if they do unveil Pennywise, hey, maybe he'll slip in there for a cameo, at the end. Who knows? But I'm still excited. Still going to support it. Still watch it when it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. Hopefully there will be a little interesting little nugget in there, but like you said, we shall see. But speaking of also really awesome movies and stuff like that, Evil Dead Rise is officially available on video on demand to rent and to purchase. And the first 10 minutes of the movie is available for free on YouTube. The first 10 minutes is sort of a cold open that serves as sort of a segue from the basically into the actual content of the story, and it all ties together. But it is pretty cool. So it's interesting that they put that up for free. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. It's good. Everybody should go out and get that. I mean, Evil Dead Rise. We talked about it in 2 episodes ago. We loved it. It's great. Go see it. It's fun so far. I mean, thus far, I think Evil Dead Rise is my favorite horror movie of the year so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is for me too. I think Evil Dead Rise is super awesome. My wife the other day was like, "Man, I've been dying to rewatch that." I'm like, it'll be streaming soon. Prior to it streaming, she was like, "Oh, we need to, I can't wait for it to stream." But
Yeah,
I feel like it moved to streaming pretty quickly though.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, well, that's kind of that's kind of the business property nowadays. When things go to the for rent or purchase pretty quickly. And it's the price point's usually a little higher than if you give it a little time. It comes
Yeah.
down. But this is, I mean, typically I'm like, I'll wait. I'll let it settle. When it leaves theaters, it'll come down a little. But this one, it's like, oh, it came up, and I was like, oh man, I'm so tempted just to go ahead. And Monica hasn't seen it yet. And I'm like, oh, you got to watch this movie, because she's not super huge on like gory stuff. And I'm like, hey, this movie for the 2/3 of the movie is not super gory. It's just really good and scary. And but I'm so tempted to play that higher price point and just go ahead and get it. I mean, it's just calling me.
Right. No, that's what I was saying. I was like, whew, I can hear it calling. Just let me in. A little hug and a kiss won't fix it.
Yeah.
Um, oh Lord. So if you guys are interested, go buy it on video on demand. Highly recommend the movie. Obviously, if you haven't watched it already. But we also have some upcoming birthdays. We actually have quite a few, which is really interesting. So May 12th, 1959, we have Ving Rhames, who is from Dawn of the Dead and the Day of the Dead remakes. So I love Ving Rhames. I think he's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
He's also, weirdly enough, he plays one of the leaders of the Ravager factions from Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
I just watched that movie. That's the only reason I remember that.
Yeah.
So we also have on May 12th, 1961, LaPark Lincoln, who is from Friday the 13th Part 7, the movie that we're reviewing today. She plays Tina Shepard. Obviously, fantastic actress. Did very well in this movie. I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah. What a cool tie-in that it fits.
Right.
Her birthday's there on the close to the anniversary of the movie, and right as we're reviewing. It's pretty cool. Doesn't happen very often for us.
That's what I was going to say. It's pretty close.
It's kind of like the Mark of the Beast or something. It's like, oh, maybe we should be worried.
Right. Oh, Lord. May 14th, 1944. So somewhat unrelated to horror, but we have to mention George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars. But Star Wars has spawned some pretty spooky shit. Like, have you ever looked up Star Weird, which is like the creepy, like, ghost things in space? That's kind of fucking weird.
I mean, to me, and I cannot, obviously I can't speak for all horror fans, but I know there is a huge overlap in horror fans, it's in science fiction, and like Star Wars fans, right? It's got to be, right? And when May the 4th come out on our social media, we put out there, hey, it's not horror related, but what's your favorite, monster or beast? There's a lot of creatures and creepy stuff in Star Wars. That's fun, but I don't care. It's not horror related, but man, I love Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so all hell King George. So there you go.
Fair enough. And then we also have May 15th, 1856. You heard that right, 1856. We have L. Frank Baum, the author and creator of Wizard of Oz.
Yes, because I stand by the fact, I don't care what anybody says, to me, Wizard of Oz is early horror. I stand by it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would definitely agree with that. I think that you would be remiss. It would be remiss to say that that's not horror, because if you think about it in the context of when it was released, that's pretty weird.
There's witches. There are people who are that are cursed into these tin men and cowardly lions and different things. And as a child, I don't give a shit what anybody says. As a child, the flying monkeys scared the crap out of me. Well,
I love that.
It is early horror. It is just as much horror as the early Universal monster movies.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that connection. Absolutely. But I guess I'll have to go back and watch the Wizard of Oz movies soon.
Mm.
Oh Lord.
That used to be what do you want to call it? It used to. I mean, every year we watched it, right? Because it was back in the day when it was just on once a year on network TV, and VCRs were not as commonplace yet. We watched Wizard of Oz every year when it aired.
That's right.
So, but I don't know how many times I've watched it since. But I'm pretty sure I think it's on it digitally. It's something, it's one of those movies that pops up. I'm like, man, you ought to rewatch that. I haven't watched that thing in I don't even know how long, and I always enjoyed it, but I always thought, how to give it a rewatch. But
that's right.
Just I don't. Not yet.
Good Lord. I honestly, it's so bad because like we do these shows and like we talk about these anniversaries and I'm like, oh man, I need to watch that, and then I don't watch it. So,
Yeah.
but One last birthday. We have May 16th, 1944. We have the man himself, Danny Trejo, from many projects, Devil's Rejects, Dusk Till Dawn, Halloween, the Rob Zombie movies,
Yep.
Spy Kids.
He's also in the Muppet Mayhem show. He has a little bit part in one of those episodes. I just saw it.
I love that.
So Danny
Lord.
Trejo's, man, he is the best. I love that he'll just do like anything. He just shows up all over, and he does these goofy things and everything else. But he's still one of those guys you look at him and think, man, he'd still kick my ass. So it's like no matter what he does, he's like he doesn't lose his cred.
No, absolutely not. He might be a little older, but he'll still beat your ass. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But
Love
now we
Danny
have.
Trejo.
That's right. Now we have a few upcoming movie releases, so I'll save the best for last here. But we have May 15th, 1981, Happy Birthday to Me. I've never seen that, but I think Dave talked about it last week that he had watched it.
Yeah, I just watched
recently.
it. Yeah. Pretty good. It's an 80s slasher type. I mean, it's atypical, but it's fun.
There you go. We also have May 13th, 1988, Maniac Cop. I have heard of this one. I've never watched it. I think you also recently watched this too, didn't you?
Yeah, I like it. I love Maniac. The other two, I don't know, they're a little rough, but the first one, man, it's fun. Again, 80s slasher, pretty stereotypical 80s slasher, but it's a fun movie to watch.
That's all that matters, right? That's all that matters, as long as it's fun to watch. Lastly, we have the movie that we're reviewing today, May 13th, 1988, Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, came out May 13th. Only, what is that?
35 years.
35 years? Oh, man.
Yeah, 35th anniversary.
That is crazy. And that's the movie we're not releasing, but the movie that we're reviewing today. 35 years in the making. That's crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. But I think that pretty much covers up on all the news and the new releases and the anniversaries and birthdays. I think I mentioned earlier, make sure you guys go check out Evil Dead Rise on video on demand. And then keep an eye out for all these other projects later down the road. We'll probably be talking about them again as more stuff comes out. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to be reviewing our movie this week, Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood.
Listen to Their Screams is now a Fangoria collaborator. Get 20% off your order at shop.fangoria.com by using the promo code LISTEN2SCREAMS at checkout. That is listen, the number 2, and screams. Or you can click the link in the show notes. All right, and we are back on Listen to the Screams. As we mentioned, the 35th anniversary from the day this is released is just 2 days away. May 13th, 1988. Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, was released. We had kind of a couple of off weeks here, so we thought, hey, we're going to hit a couple of classic anniversary type movies. And, it's a 35th anniversary. Let's hit it up. We've already talked about one Friday the 13th. What was that? Which one did we talk about? Part 6 before, where we compared it to Frankenstein?
We did, yeah. Or was it Jason Takes Manhattan?
No, I think it was Part 6.
Yeah, because that's the one where he stabs him in the grave and he comes back to life. Yep.
Yeah. So, but because this is a 35th anniversary, we'll dive into it. I'm sure at some point in time, we will do a Friday the 13th retrospective. It would probably coincide with when Crystal Lake starts coming out. Yes. We'll save it for that time period. So, but we're going to hit this movie because it's the 35th anniversary. Again, it was released on May 13th, 1988. It didn't do horribly well. It grossed $19.1 million at the box office on a $2.8 million budget. I know financially speaking, it's okay, but it wasn't a high grossing movie for the year. The working title for this film was Birthday Bash. And it was ironic because as I read through some fun facts, there was lots of people who were in earlier Friday the 13th that auditioned and things, not knowing this was a Friday the 13th movie. And they auditioned for parts. And then when they got to it, they're like, oh, I was in this. And they're like, oh, yeah, you can't get the role then. You've already played a character. But I saw like 2 or 3 different occasions. I don't remember the specific actors, but where that happened. This movie is the first appearance of Kane Hodder playing Jason Voorhees. I believe he played Jason in 4 movies. He's like, 4, I think, in a row. He's the first guy, I think, to play it in multiple roles, multiple movies. Mm-hmm. I still, to this day, I think he's got the most, appearances by Jason. Kane Hodder is great. He's a cool guy, obviously a great horror actor. But this was his first appearance as Jason. This movie, there were several edits and cuts that they had to make this movie because when they initially submitted it, they gave it an X rating because it was gory and bloody. So they had to do all kinds of things to get an R rating. They were not happy about the cuts. They had to cut so much that this movie, a lot of people have tongue-in-cheek called it Friday the 13th Part 7 No Blood, because it's not nearly as kind of as gory and graphic as a lot of the other movies. Now, unfortunately, there's been lots of talk of, oh, could we ever get a director's cut or an ultimate edition of it, right? With the stuff, most of those cut scenes don't exist anymore. It's been destroyed. They're not out there, so there's never, there's no chance of having some of that stuff restored and kind of getting the initial vision of the movie. But they did do a lot of cuts and edits to get it down to that R rating. When preparing to do this movie, coming out of Part 6, they originally wanted this to be the take where it was finally we brought Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger together, which we later got, obviously, as Freddy versus Jason. They wanted to do it here, but the two properties were not under the same umbrella, and the negotiations between Paramount Pictures, which had the Friday the 13th property, and New Line Cinema, which had the Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, they couldn't reach an agreement. It fell apart, so this is what they went with. It's kind of wild to think what could have been at that time in 1988 if we could have got a Freddy and Jason movie. That would have been great. I mean, I know Freddy versus Jason gets a lot of heat. It's not my favorite movie, but it's still it's fun, and it's still because it's Freddy versus Jason, it's cool. But man, in 1988, I think it would have been super fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this movie features the longest that Jason Voorhees has ever seen on screen unmasked. This guy, he's quote unquote called Zombie Jason a lot because he's risen from the dead, but this is the most on screen he's ever seen unmasked. The opening of this, where it's kind of they give a lot of backstory, right? They tell a lot, kind of bring you up to speed on the Friday the 13th. That is actually narrated by Walt Garney, who played Crazy Ralph in the first two movies. So that is super cool. Crazy Ralph was such a fun character. I wish they had never killed him off. I really wish Crazy Ralph could have just made appearances as long as he lived, just popped up in all the movies. But it's pretty cool that the actor narrated the opening of this movie. And like we said, this movie was released in 1988, and that year was the first year that Friday the 13th, which they had Part 7, the Halloween franchise, which had Part 4, Return of Michael Myers, and Nightmare on Elm Street, where they had the Dream Master, all released movies in the same year. And additionally to that, this year, the first Child's Play was also released. So 1988 was a super big year for the big horror franchises. Now, so let's talk about this movie. I gave all this fun fact stuff. So let's just dive into it. Why don't you talk a little bit? Tell us what you think a little bit of Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood.
Absolutely. So let me preface it by saying that I do like the movie. I think it's a really fun movie. I don't think it's the best Friday the 13th movie by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
This has a lot of issues that are just kind of symptomatic. I think that I could probably write a book about how the common tropes of sequels, right? You could write a book of the common tropes of sequels. And one of the common tropes of any horror franchise is that they try and up the outlandishness of the series. And in the last movie, we saw Jason Voorhees get dropped down to the bottom of the lake. Okay, great. So not only in this movie do we see him come back from that, which is fine. I guess that's not terribly crazy considering he is essentially an embodiment of evil or whatever. But at the same time, we also start jumping into the realm of, okay, well, now these people have psychic powers. And there's a lot of issues, again, with the movie. It's still a fun movie. It still holds up in a lot of ways. But the thing that I would like to credit the most for this movie, that I like to give the biggest kudos to, is how Jason looks. So Jason, literally, he looks like a waterlogged zombie. He looks incredibly accurate for given the conditions that he was existing in. I mean, he was underwater for years technically. So he looks like a zombie. His spine is exposed. His face is all weird and disfigured, even more so. So in my opinion, I think this is one of the best looking Jasons, just because of how cool he looks as a zombie. So while it may not be the best movie, I think that the special effects that were done to make Jason look the way he did is fantastic. I think it's so wonderful because it legitimately looks like a zombie. So despite all of like the craziness that this movie brings, it has a very interesting story. It has, while it's kind of cheesy and goofy, it does kind of have a satisfying conclusion, because the conclusion of this movie is, of course, that the main character, who is Tina, who is played by LaPark Lincoln, she uses her psychic powers to try and fight off Jason. It eventually leads outside to the boardwalk or whatever, and using her psychic powers, she conjures the spirit of her dead father to drag Jason back down to the bottom of the lake or whatever.
Yeah.
So when I say
a cool homage, kind of back to the first couple movies, right, with Jason coming out of the lake type deal, and the Pamela Voorhees coming out of the lake, all that from the first couple movies, kind of a little homage to that, I think.
Yeah, I would agree, and I do like that. It definitely tried. I mean, it's hard to say because all of these movies, they always end off on a cliffhanger, or at least they don't completely shut the door, is what I want to say.
Right.
And that's fine. That's symptomatic of any horror movie or really any franchise sequel, right? They don't want to shut the door all the way, because if they shut the door all the way, they stop making money. So, I don't think that any entity is going to put themselves in that position where they cannot make any more money. So I think that obviously they didn't shut the door. They kept it a little open-ended. They kind of pulled all this weird psychic stuff, which wasn't horrible. But again, like I said, it's by no means the best Friday the 13th movie. It probably wouldn't even crack my top 5 if I'm going to be honest. But despite all of that, this is still a fun movie. You know what I mean? And that's what we look at. We look, do you enjoy this movie? Is this a fun movie? Absolutely. I mean, Dave's watched it like 50 times this year, so obviously, obviously it's good. You're like, I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah,
like you said, I wouldn't say this is a 5 out of 5 Oscar winner movie, but it is. It's a movie that you can sit down and watch. You don't have to think hard about it. It's just fun. So I think I've rambled for a while now. So what would you add to that, I suppose?
I agree. Here's the thing. There's probably not any of the Friday the 13th that I don't find fun in some way. I enjoy them all somehow, to some degree. I completely agree. This is nowhere near my top, right? This would be if I was ranking them, which again, we will at some point in time, right? We're saving that for the Crystal Lake, the series.
Yeah.
This will be in the bottom. I guarantee you, right? It'll just because there's too many of the others that I like better. But it does have. I'm not a big fan of the whole psychic ability thing or whatever. But it's something different, right? They tried something different. I don't know. It's okay. I'm kind of glad they didn't stick with it, and because I think when they first envisioned this, they were hoping Tina would go into a few movies. I'm kind of glad they didn't go that route. I'm especially glad because if you want to talk about cheesy movies or whatever else, because after this we got Jason Takes Manhattan, which everybody knows that I love that movie.
Same.
Yeah, so I'm glad that I'm glad Tina failed, because we wouldn't have got that probably if it hadn't. But it's okay. I agree. Jason looks great, right? I read some things about the mask was modeled from a mold from the part 3 mask. They had to kind of trim it down to fit, but Jason looked great in this one, right? It was he looked creepy, he looked scary, and he looked appropriate for what he should have been. It was great. Kane Hodder, man, hats off. He was probably the highlight of the movie. He did such a good job. But I will say, if there's one thing, this movie has one of the best Friday the 13th kills of all time, because this has the sleeping bag kill, right? And that is one of the best of any of the movies. It is so great. I love it. That is one of the ones, though, that if I remember right, in my readings and watching documentaries, that they had to do a lot of editing on. It was much more graphic, much longer, and much gorier originally, and they trimmed it down. But it's still that is an original, fresh kill to me, right? I don't know that you've seen that before, right? And maybe you've seen it since, but it was great. That jumps at me, that sleeping bag kill. And again, there's nothing groundbreaking about it. It's just it's a fun little slasher movie. Jason has some great kills. Like I said, they tried something different. It's got your typical, goofy ass kids in it that die one by one because they're morons and idiots, and that's a Friday the 13th staple. But it is fun. I I love the Jason Voorhees character, and it was really good in this. And again, it's a fun movie, not at all one of my favorite of the Friday the 13th, because the psychic approach, I was like, I don't know, that's not my favorite approach to it. But I can give them props for trying something, right? They went back to the, hey, we need a final girl, we need this and that. Well, but they wanted to do something different. Hey, what if, we had this Carrie-like character who had these powers, and I give them props for giving it a shot. I don't know I don't know. It's not, it didn't work the greatest in the retrospect, but that's okay. But part of me, I don't know. Part of me, this comes out of a lot of Tommy Jarvis, in the previous few movies,
Right.
Which I love Tommy. So when you take that away and you give us this, I'm like, that's a little disappointing for me. I know maybe you can't go with Tommy all the time, but then again, when you follow this up with Jason Takes Manhattan, which I love, and it's like this one's like, okay, it doesn't. When you put it up side by side with some of these others, it doesn't. It's weaker to me.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's still a fun watch. I'm okay watching it because of the some of the highlights that pop out of it. Look, I love that sleeping bag kill. Every time I'm like, that's great. So it's a fun movie. They tried something different. I think they tried to. There's a lot of talk. Some of my reading on it. They wanted to. Their attempt was they wanted to get a big time director for it and make something a little more serious and a little more. And they obviously couldn't get all that. And this is what they got. So I think there's a lot of concepts they wanted to do with Jason and Friday the 13th. The Freddy versus Jason stuff, making something a little more bigger and more, I don't know, quote unquote, respectable or whatever, and things that they couldn't accomplish. So they went with this, and this is what you got because they wanted to get something in the theater. And so I feel like we're talking a plan C or D on their list of what they wanted to do, and that's what it feels like, right? I think that's what you get. I very much would have loved to have seen a Freddy Jason thing in 1988. That would have been I can only imagine. I mean, we're talking, Robert Englund in his prime, Kane Hodder as Jason at that time. So whatever, we didn't get it. So
Right.
Again, it's a fun movie, nothing groundbreaking, nothing spectacular. Not one of my favorite Friday the 13th, but I love the franchise as a whole. So it is what it is. When you have a franchise, there's going to be some that you love more than others. And this is one of them that's, to me, is at the bottom of the franchise, towards the bottom of the franchise. And but it's not bad because to me, it's still a fun franchise. So, it is what it is. It's still,
Right.
it's fun to look at these movies 35 years later, though. And it's still fun after all that time. It's not, it's not super dated to me. There's nothing in that dates it. So, but I don't know. Kane Hodder as Jason Voorhees was still great. He looked
Right.
great and everything else. I mean, Kane Hodder is a imposing physical specimen, and the makeup was great in this. The look of Jason, both masked and unmasked, was great. It was scary, and it was,
It was.
it fit what what they set up. So, Tina was okay. She was a little hokey at parts. I don't know, but I'm not a big fan of the psychic part, but it was okay. It was fun, but not one of my favorite of the Friday installments. So
Yeah. What I was gonna say is, you kind of mentioned it, and I kind of pondered on it for a minute. I wish, because like you said, the scenes don't exist anymore. But I think that this movie probably would be better if we saw sort of like that more bloody, gory version. Um,
yeah,
I would probably say that would probably make it a little bit better. Um, but like you said, it's probably one of the situations where that shit probably doesn't even exist anymore,
yeah,
which is unfortunate. But it is what it is. But it kind of reminds me of like with you know, it was a Halloween. What was it? 6, Curse of Michael Myers. The original version's kind of a steaming pile of dog shit, but the you know, the producer's cut is actually pretty good, in my opinion. Makes more sense at least.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, if their first submission of this got them an X rating because
right,
of gore and blood, I would love to have seen that submission. Because that's another part that's disappointing about this, right? The typical slasher gore, especially for Fridays, it's not there, right? It is kind of meek in comparison
right,
to some of this. And as much as I love that sleeping bag scene, to know that the original was up and amped up that much more, I'm
right.
like, man, I want to see that. But it's like I said, it's gone, and it doesn't exist. It's not possible. And, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, it would have. I would have liked to have seen it, and I think that probably would have bumped it up in my eyes. It would have made it. Yeah, it would have it improved a lot. Um, I'm still not sold on the psychic part, so that kind of it's while it's okay, it's original. It's still not one of my favorite concepts in the franchise. But I would have definitely loved to have seen a bloodier version of this movie.
Absolutely, absolutely. Bloodier, gorier, maybe maybe a little bit more, maybe a couple more swings on that sleeping bag.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I could say that probably about a lot of movies. I'm like, so it needs a little more blood. I mean, it's not Terrifier 2, so I mean, it needs a little more gore.
That's right.
So, so I mean,
Oh
I
man.
I could probably say that about a lot of things. But again, it's a fun movie. So let's rank this thing. I'll go first. Again, it's a fun movie. I don't think it's breaking any ground. Nothing spectacular. To me, it's just a flat out kind of a 3 out of 5 for me. It's right in the middle of the road. I enjoyed it. I don't mind it when I rewatch it, but it's not necessarily when I seek out to rewatch. When I'm wanting to watch a Friday movie, it's just probably I guess I should say Friday the 13th because Friday is a whole nother franchise. A Friday the 13th movie. It's not my go-to. It's not one of my go-tos. It's not even high on the list of my go-tos. So, but it is fun. It's still got fun elements, as far as what it is. So I'm going to rank it just middle of the ground, just a 3 screams out of 5.
Yep, I would have to agree. Like you said, if I was going to seek out a Friday the 13th movie to watch, it probably would not be Friday the 13th New Blood. It would probably be, one of the other ones that I kind of more enjoy. That, of course, doesn't mean this is a bad movie, but it also doesn't mean that it's any crazy, like, amazing movie. So, like you said, in my opinion, I would probably have to kind of sit right in the middle there, riding the fence just a little bit, 3 out of 5. It's just, especially now that we've reviewed more movies and we have more movies under our belt that we've ranked, it's like you kind of have to kind of find this sort of consistency with how you rank movies because,
Right.
you rank some movies 3 out of 5 or 3.5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5. And it's really like, yeah, man, you got to really find that line where you have to draw like when do you give it a 3? When do you give it this? So 3 out of 5, that's where I'm sticking. Good movie, but you said it best, not breaking any new ground.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm seeking out to watch Jason do some things, he's probably on a boat heading to the city that never sleeps. So that's just the way it is. I'm sorry. I know it's not the greatest movie, but Jason Takes Manhattan is one of my favorite horror movies. It is. I love it. I don't know why.
It's good.
It's so fun to me. So fun. And it has flaws, but it's still fun. But we'll talk about it someday, I'm sure. But if we are seriously, I can't hardly contain my excitement here because if we're talking about one of my favorite horror movies of all time, next episode, Ike,
Yep.
next episode, we're there. I mean, this movie is literally up there. I mean, we're talking like up there on my list because next episode, celebrating another anniversary because on May 27th, 1988, this movie was released. So it also is celebrating this 35th anniversary. Next episode, we are going to review Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I have mentioned this movie so many times. I have expressed my utter love of this movie. We have talked horror comedies. This movie is your prototypical, hey, if you want a horror comedy, this is what you go for. This is it. I love this movie. I'm not even going to try to put on a front that I know we're reviewing it next week. but I love this movie. So I cannot wait to talk about it. I watch this movie all the time. So I can't wait to watch it like a dozen times this next week, just because I can say, well, I have to for the podcast. Um, I can't wait. I mean, this movie's so fun. I can't wait to talk about it. It's so cool that it's 35th anniversary. I'm so excited that there's going to be a game coming out for this soon. I'm so excited there's merchandise all the time coming out for it. I'm so excited that there's still always these whispers of a sequel, which I wish they would do at some point. But I'm excited. So what do you think about next week talking Killer Clowns?
Absolutely. Weirdly enough, I watched Killer Clowns from Outer Space for the first time last year. I had never seen it before, and I just happened to see it on some streaming platform. It was either like Tubi or Shudder or something like that. And I watched it, and it was great. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Obviously, I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but I'm very excited to review it too, especially since it has a pretty huge anniversary coming up. And I think the next episode will be fun because you talk about certain movies that just have like that charm, and this is one of those movies that kept the charm from that period. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. I'll tell you, this movie hits on all cylinders for me. It's so good. I cannot wait. So I'm literally trying to contain myself to not just jump into it right now and save it for the next episode. But so anyway, that's on the next episode. We're going to celebrate the 35th anniversary and talk about Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I cannot wait. But until then, make sure you subscribe to us on whatever platform, because you don't want to miss that episode. You don't want to hear me just gush and show my love for this movie. It's probably going to be embarrassing. It really is. So make sure you subscribe to us and leave us a review on wherever. Like it said earlier in the ad, make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're out there. We're active. We're living the good life, trying to support horror movies. So make sure you follow us. So Ike, until next week, where we're putting on the grease paint and shooting people with the cotton candy guns. You have anything you want to add?
Just stay spooky. Check out Evil Dead Rise. It's literally on streaming. You don't even have to go to the theater. Like, go check it out. I want everybody to support Evil Dead because I want more Evil Dead movies. I need some sequels. But yes, so check out Evil Dead. Stay spooky. I think that's all I got to say.
All right. So until next week when we talk Killer Clowns, because they're crazy. But wherever you go and whatever you do, be good, be safe, and have many pleasant nightmares.